a glorified slot machine, or an arena in which to prove your skill. The debate between luck and skill in Dota Underlords is complicated. This is due in large part to the chaotic nature of the game. There are 8 people in every lobby, and every decision that a player makes affects the rest. For example, if one player hits an early 2-star bounty hunter, that might dissuade another player from committing to assassins, and he then decides to go mages instead. Then other players in the lobby make decisions based on those decisions, causing a chain reaction that buries us all in the avalanche of possibilities. When there are so many variables to consider, it can start to feel like that guy just got lucky and I was unlucky. I believe, however, that the true skill of the game lies in navigating chaos, and that luck has little to do with it. Going into every game, each player has an equal chance of winning. I believe that each individual player's combination of unit and item RNG that is going to occur has within it a winning combination. What I mean is, every single player has a path to victory. It just needs to be uncovered. Here are 3 ways you can navigate through the chaos of your lobby and become a better Underlords player. Number 1. Know your strength. Knowing the strength of your board in relation to the lobby will allow you to make better decisions in many situations. It will help you recognize when you should defend a win streak, punish players who are rolling aggressively, and when to go all in. Let's break those down, starting with win streaks. Let's say you get a strong early game board, maybe 2 2-stars on round 3, or a Magnus Bristleback Enchantress pack on round 1. You could level aggressively to maintain your win streak and pull ahead of the lobby, but it's a risky strategy. If you are defeated, you will lose both interest gold and win streak gold. Leveling to level 4 also lowers your odds for tier 1 units, making it harder to 3-star them. So, leveling to 4 early in the game can easily change the outcome of the entire match, and isn't a decision you should take lightly. This is why you should use the tab button and scan the other boards. Eventually, through experience, you will get a kind of 6th sense for whether or not you can beat the other boards in the lobby. You could also test it in freestyle, but it's hard to prepare for every situation. If you are certain that you can't defeat 1 or 2 other boards even after leveling to 4, it makes it a much easier decision on whether you should level or not. If you notice in the early to mid game that other boards are markedly weaker than yours and rolling for 3 stars, it could be worth it to spend your economy early and crush them in the mid game before they can hit their power spike. Yes, you might lose some interest gold, but you can easily deal around 15 damage in the mid game. If these roll heavy builds do finally come online and get a huge power spike in the end game, but only have 7 HP left due to a difficult mid game, chances are they will have one bad RNG fight and still get knocked out. Don't level just for the sake of leveling. You need to know why you want to level. Will it give you a huge power spike, or not really make your board that much stronger at all? Will it improve odds for units you want, or decrease odds? All these things need to be considered before making a decision like that. At some point, you will need to go all in. This is usually in the end game when there are only 2 or 3 boards left, but not always. Let's say there are still 8 players in the game, you are at 7 HP, 1 unit off of a 3-star, and you have an upgrade for another unit waiting in your shop you don't have enough gold for. Do you sell that 8 out of 9 unit to get the upgrade? Do you lock and hope you survive the round? That is when knowing your strength is super useful. If you know for a fact that you can't beat any of the other boards, you know you have to act and sell that 8 out of 9 unit, as much as it hurts to do so. However, if you feel confident that you have a good chance at beating other boards, that might be when you lock and hope you survive the round. A big part of this is also knowing when to play for first place. Because in some games, it will be obvious that getting first place is no longer an option for you. You just don't have the HP or the economy or the units. At that point, you have to switch your motivations. You are now just playing to survive as long as possible, and you can have more short-term goals. Instead of going for that greedy lock, you sell and do everything you can to hit power spikes, and that might help you get 4th place instead of 8th. Oftentimes, it's just 1 or 2 rounds that separate those players. I will say, however, that if it's the finals of a tournament, I would play for first place no matter what. That means I'm willing to take more risk and potentially get 8th place instead of 4th, but maintain that possibility of getting first. If it's the qualifying round of the tournament and top 4 advance, again, I would play differently. The important thing to remember is that if you go all in too early, you might lose a game that you could get first place in. That's why you need to know the strength of your board in relation to your lobby. Number 2, keep your options open. Choosing your build is a vital skill. I feel like the early game of Underlords is kind of underrated, and I can see why. It can feel boring sometimes. The clock is very long and you're waiting for fights to finish and you're kind of, tapping your fingers waiting for the next round. But you should use this time to really think about which direction you want to go, because these first few rounds can have such a big impact on the game. Do not commit too early. I used to sell units early to hit that 10 interest gold quick. Now I always wait that 1 extra round, and that gives you an extra round to scout out your opponents and to see what you get from the shop. Keep those options open as long as possible, and don't feel like you have to stick to your build. If you get a 2-star CK on round 3, you might think, oh, this is an easy Knights game. But maybe someone else in the lobby has a bunch of Knights on their bench, not on their board, and so you can tell they're thinking about transitioning into Knights. So you have to keep that in mind. It's not enough just to look at the units they have on the board. In that same scenario, if no one is contesting mages and you see that guy with Knights on his bench, even though you have that early CK2, it might be in your interest to switch builds. Actually, in that case, I would say always switch, because uncontested mages early are just really strong in this meta right now. Another point is be flexible. Let's say you're hyper rolling mages. You already have Crystal Maiden 3, but you want that Lich 3, even though your progress isn't so good. Instead of rolling because you know you're supposed to have Lich 3 in hyper roll mages, just cut your losses, just level up. Don't try to force the game in a direction it doesn't want to go. Like water, take the path of least resistance. You wouldn't believe how focused in people get on certain ideas once they develop them. They will roll over other very useful units for their build and not even notice, just be completely blind to it because they're focused on hitting that 3-star. It's happened to me lots of times. It's usually easier to see if you watch your matches back later, because in the moment, you just don't notice. And finally, number 3, have a plan. I know I just said be flexible, but these two things don't contradict one another. You need a plan. There's nothing worse than rolling down and not knowing exactly what you're rolling for. You need to identify the path to victory. For example, you might think, if I hit Ember 3-star, I think I can win this game. If you know that Ember 3 is your win condition, you might change your playstyle to guarantee hitting it. You might sell your 2 TAs and Faceless Voids on the bench and use that extra 18 gold to hit that Ember 3. If you try to hold on to everything, you'll just lose. Conversely, if you are rolling for several 1 costs, you may need to sell that juicy early 3-cost pair to conserve bench space. Don't level or roll without having a reason for doing it. Otherwise, you're just kind of blindly hoping. I like to think that every single game you queue into, you have the possibility of getting first place. The only thing holding you back is not RNG, it's you. So that about does it for this video. I would love to kind of delve into the discussion of luck and skill in Underlords a bit more, and maybe I'll make a separate video on that. I was looking at comparisons between games like poker and Underlords. I think most people agree that poker is a game of skill, although there is a large element of luck in the short term. Professional poker players mitigate the luck aspect by consistently making good decisions, allowing them to win in the long term. This is why I'm looking forward to more Dota Underlords tournaments, because I think it's easier to see that skill coming out in a more controlled environment. If you're playing on the ladder, you're constantly playing versus players of various skill levels. Some lobbies you end up with very low MMR players, and some you have 17k MMR players. So you might feel like, oh, this is just luck. I just lost this round and I just got first place last round, what's going on? Well, it could be that you're just going up against players of very different skill levels. Yeah, and in a tournament, you're playing, let's say, versus 8 really skilled players over and over and over. I think you would see that good decision making proving players' skill in placements over time. This is Rainbow Ponies 123. Thanks for watching the video. See you next time.